Okay, we are here on podcast number 18, I think now, and I'm going to promise you. Now, listen, I have a tendency to make big, big statements, but I'm going to promise you this is going to be a podcast that's really, really going to like because I've got someone. I'm 68. I mean, that's like close to 90. I'm 68 years old. In 68 years, I'll tell you this. I have never met another person who I believe in my heart has responded from an event that was as difficult as you could go through and done a better job at creating the outcome that she wanted. Wendy Sefcik, there's a term, and you all know it's serendipity. Serendipity is like these events happen for no apparent reason. And one July day, one warm July day, somebody walked up to a yoga class of mine, and we met, and we knew that we were meant to meet. And Wendy Sefcik is not only an incredible woman, but she is someone who's changing lives and going into the deep, tough stuff, one class at a time, one school at a time, one person who needs her help at a time. And Wendy is an incredible person. And Wendy, we want to welcome you here.
Thank you so much.
And we are here with my partner, Jocelyn Sokol, and this is going to be a good one. So Wendy, when I first met you on the beach, I wasn't aware of what you had gone through in your life, and you had quite a story. It had a lot of different layers to it. Can you fill us in a little bit about what you have experienced in your life?
I actually had a really typical upbringing. Grew up in Bergen County. Life was good. Life was easy. Went to college, met the love of my life, got married at 25, and 9 months later, my husband's plane was blown up by a terrorist bomb. He was killed on Pan Am 103 on December 21st, 1988. So that was the first time I really had to recreate myself. I was completely shattered. I was a young woman, young widow, and I had to figure out how to pick up the pieces of my life when I didn't want to. And what I found is life goes on, whether you like it or not. And I realized then that I wanted to find a way forward, honoring my husband, living a good life, so that when I saw him again, because I do believe, I'm not sure how it happens, and everyone has a different belief system, but I believe that we all will be reunited in some way, shape, or form at some day. And I wanted the conversation to kind of go like this. Hey, you were exactly who I thought I married. I'm proud of you. And I wanted to find a way forward. And I did. And I never forgot Jay. I remember him to this day. It's over 30 years. And then fast forward, I moved forward. I became an advocate for airline security and safety. I got busy. I went to law school. And I was very blessed to meet another man who was kind and sensitive and sweet, and somebody that accepted the fact that I had been in love and been married and been widowed and would never, ever leave that behind, but had moved forward. And very blessed to marry Steve. And we were blessed with 3 beautiful boys. Very quickly they came. And life was good. Life was really, really good. And I felt I had lived through the worst thing anybody could live through, and that now I was going to move forward. And I really did cherish each day because I knew how quickly life could change. And there was no way that I could predict that just 16 years later, I would lose one of my children to suicide. My son, TJ, was the middle of my 3 boys. He was a beautiful, warm, intelligent, athletic boy, always quick to laugh and smile and give hugs. And we learned later that he really lived behind a mask of smiles. and always trying to help others. And he held an inner pain that none of us really understood. And he, as I said, he died by suicide when he was 16. And after that, I realized that mental health was something that I really never gave a thought to. I understood sadness. I understood life could be hard and bad things could happen, but I didn't realize that some people live with such intense inner pain that they could make a decision to take their own life. And I really couldn't believe that it happened in homes like I had, a two-parent family, 3 kids, the dogs, no ghosts in the closet, a good family. And from the minute I lost TJ, I knew that I had to do something, that if we lost a child in this way, that there must be other families going through what we had gone through. And I, as I said, I had gone to law school, so research comes very natural to me. So I threw myself into learning everything I could about teen depression, suicide risk, and how this had happened to my family. And unfortunately, what I found was very, very disturbing, that suicide is not an uncommon occurrence. Every year we lose over 48,000 people to suicide. It's the second leading cause of death in our youth. And I am afraid of our mental health in light of the COVID pandemic, because I do know that it's just an additional layer and people are feeling further isolated. Their anxiety levels are ratcheting up. We are seeing more depression and isolation, which are all red flags and potential risk factors for suicide risk. So that's what happened after I lost TJ. I just threw myself into it and realized that there was value in sharing my story, that what had happened, and if it happened to him, it could happen to anyone. But I also believe that the vast majority of suicides can be prevented if we know what to look for, if we know how to reach out that kind and helping hand to provide a good ear and sounding board to validate how people are feeling. And that's the work that I do now. I am a suicide prevention advocate and a mental health advocate.
What is that, a suicide prevention advocate? What is it that you've been doing to help?
So I'm very involved with, I'm a New Jersey chapter board member with the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. And AFSP is the largest national organization devoted to suicide prevention. A lot of money goes into research, and we do a lot with education and awareness. I'm also very proud to be on the New Jersey Youth Suicide Prevention Advisory Council, which is a statewide council that has gatekeepers from all areas of the state, that sole mission is to prevent youth suicide and to raise awareness and to provide education. I am also recently, in the last year, was hired by Bergen County to serve as the suicide prevention coordinator, because suicide is an issue across the lifespan. And we do know that here in New Jersey, we're very blessed with a lot of resources. However, and this happens in many areas, but in the area of suicide prevention, everyone works in silos. Nobody wants to share and play in the sandbox together. And we need to break those barriers down. We need to make it easier to identify the resources, to share the resources, and to work together collaboratively so that people who need help can get the help that they need.
Yeah. So you had every reason to just throw the towel in. I mean, you'd been through 2 traumatic experiences that rank up in the 10 category, right? And everyone else would have totally understood if you said, I'm done. But somehow, where did this inner strength come from to actually not only just survive, but to try to almost flip TJ's death upside down so that it became a fuel for you to go out and help families? I mean, you should have been helping yourself, but instead you displaced your sadness and went out and helped other people. Where did you find the strength, and did that help you heal?
Well, one of the things I have found is that in helping others, there is tremendous healing. And a turning point for me came after I lost my first husband. We had a grief therapist come to speak with family members. And I remember what she said, and what she told us is, look, this is a horrific event that has happened to you. And if you curl up in a ball and decide never to move forward in life, no one would blame you because, oh my gosh, this is horrific what happened. But know that it is your choice. So you can curl up in a ball and not move forward, or you can find a way forward. And that choice is up to you. And I remember a light bulb went off for me right then. And I realized, who do I want to be when I see him again? And it was the same after I lost TJ. Unfortunately, I realized that as much as I didn't want to live with the fact that I had lost a child, that the sun would still rise and set. In addition, I was very blessed to be the mother of 2 other boys. And I did not want my other 2 sons to have a life that was defined by their brother's death.
Yeah.
Nor did I want my son TJ's life to be defined by the moment of his death. Because as I described, he was an incredible young man. He had so many gifts. And one thing was that he had this affliction where he felt this deep sense of isolation and inner pain. But I did not want that to be the definition of TJ's life. So that's really what pushed me forward. And the other thing I realized is everything is a matter of perspective. So either I could focus on the fact that TJ was gone, or I could focus on the fact that I was very blessed to be his mother. It's the same thing, but I knew that I wanted to shift the perspective, that I still was somebody who had a lot to be grateful for. I realized very early on that life is hard. Life is not fair, and life is hard for a lot of people. And while I had these really difficult things that had happened to me, I also had so many wonderful things. I had tremendous family. After we lost TJ, not only my family and my friends came out to support us, the entire community really rallied around us. So I knew I had so much to be grateful for. And everybody wanted to and needed to mourn my son. And I needed to let them do that collectively. So that's what we did.
Amazing.
And I also really worried about these other kids, all these other kids, and what was going on with them. And I just felt like I needed to do something for them. And as I said when I started this, I have found that in helping others, there is tremendous healing. And not only can you survive, but you can thrive and have great joy in your life, even when you have lived through tremendous pain.
Yeah, incredible, Wendy.
Yeah, incredible. So incredible. You said that you're worried, or the community's worried that children at risk and teens at risk of suicide, that it will rise with COVID-19. Are you seeing that? Is that happening?
So we don't really know what we're going to see with the youth. We do expect the suicide numbers to rise actually with middle-aged adults because of all the economic impact that we're seeing, the job loss, people can't provide for their families. So there's a concern there. We do expect, for some kids that the anxiety and depression will rise, but there's also a flip side of that. This COVID pandemic has created this bubble of hitting the pause button and taking a break, and the stress levels for a lot of kids have actually come down. They're not so busy. They don't have, hours of homework on top of tons of activities and places to be. Families are coming together in a way that many had not been able to because life was so busy. People are sitting down together, having family meals. They're playing basketball in the driveway. So of course, there's many, many situations, but we don't exactly know. I can tell you that prior to the pandemic and us shutting down, New Jersey was off to a horrific start. In the first 2 months of the year, we had, quite a few youth suicides. And we were really concerned because if that trend had continued, it would have been, breaking records for the state. And we didn't really even understand why that was happening. And we were trying to catch up and figure out what was going on. But that seems to stop. It's not that there have not been any suicides since the pandemic, but the rate at which we've been losing young lives has definitely slowed.
Yeah. Your ears must be ringing every time I go out and speak, because every time I go out and speak, I usually talk about you. And I talk about one part of you that to me is like I'll talk about till the day I die. And when I ask people, is there one word that is at the heart of who you are? Is there one word that that just is your emblem of who you are? And people pause, hesitate. Some people say strength. Some people, they pause and say, a gratitude. But you, without even like an inch of a second, like scream this at me, and I'll never forget it. And I love it because it is, I believe, not only just a word to you, it's the real thing. So could you give us the one word that you say is at the heart of you?
Love.
Right.
Love.
And why?
It's what it's all about. Every question, everything that comes before us, if we move forward from a place of love, it will be the right choice. It will be the right decision. When I got into this work of suicide prevention with youth, I'm not a clinician. People were worried. What if you say the wrong thing? What if you do the wrong thing? And I know that I am coming from a place of deep love for anybody that I talk to. That doesn't mean I can do miracles, but I can love. I can give love. And that goes a really long way everywhere. And I did see that, as I said, with these two huge losses in my life, it was the love that got me through. And it always comes down to that. The love is really the answer. It doesn't mean it's going to make life easy, and life isn't going to be hard, and life is going to be fair, but love really is the way forward.
Right. We've heard the opposite of fear is love, right? So really interesting.
Can you speak to what, you said that what happened with your son, that the death of your first husband, in a sense, helped you to handle that. Do you know what you can point to that helped you to prepare and react the way you did to your husband's death, your ex-husband's death?
Sometimes you might hear the term grief work. So one thing I learned is you never get over it. You can move forward. I know after I lost Jay, my first husband, one of the things I was afraid of is I didn't want people to think I had forgotten. I was afraid to move on and to put that smile on my face because I didn't want people to think, well, it's over for me. And what I realized is it doesn't matter what anybody thinks. I would always carry him in my heart. And so when I lost TJ, I knew I could find a way forward somehow. I knew I had to find a way forward. And I knew that the one thing that never leaves is the love, that I would always have the love of TJ and that I would always love my son. And that is really the greatest lesson is love never ends. It never dies. It's an ongoing energy that we can hold on to forever. And unfortunately, we learn the most in this life from the hard. And that's why we need contrasts in our life. When life, as I said, my childhood was spectacular. I mean, it was easy. I never really expected, and I'm just going to work hard and do right and things will be okay. And then when the hard happens, that's when we really see who we are and what we're made up of and where our strength comes from. And for me, that strength did come from love. In both cases, I felt an enormous power within me, and I knew it was coming from this source. Everybody, some people have a great faith. I have a very, very tremendous faith in something more. And my faith does come down to that single piece. My God is a God of love, not based on religion and rules, but I just know that this is a being of pure love, and that's what sees me through.
So you used the word choice, perspective, and gratitude before. So one day you woke up and said, I have a choice. I can keep this sadness, this anger, whatever. I'm going to put things in perspective and be grateful for what I do have. But for people who have lost someone and they wake up and they just, when does it go away? Or is there any way that you would tell someone who's lost someone they love that can help them? And maybe I'm being repetitive of what you've already said, but I think you're the best at this. What do I do? We were just chatting about a grieving counselor that said, always remember, is what I'm doing hurting me or helping me? Is what I'm doing, moving me forward or dragging me back? Am I looking at pictures of my husband, 6 months ago? Is that helping me or hurting me? How do you feel about that? And any other strategies that you could give us to help this?
Well, I think what's really, really important is to feel what you feel, right? Don't be afraid to feel the bad, right? When somebody dies, very often, we want to make that person feel better. Number one, there is no right thing to say. Everybody, what do I say? What should I say? What should I do? There's no right words, and there's nothing to do, right? That casserole or that bouquet of flowers, that's you making yourself feel better because you did something. The best thing that we can do for somebody who has suffered a loss is to just be there for them, be available, and allow them to feel what they feel. Allow them to cry their tears, allow them to talk about their loved one. And I think in this society, we're afraid of feelings. People cry, and what do? We say, it's okay. Well, actually, it's not,
But
even
what
the
about the
smallest
person?
hurt.
Let me bring it back to the person that's lost
Yeah,
the
yeah,
person they love.
yeah. So that's what I'm saying, is let them feel their feelings. And I think it's real. I know after TJ, I had so many well-meaning people here. Let me get you a prescription so that you can sleep, so that you can do this. And I said, I don't know how I knew it, but I said, no, I said, I need to feel what I'm feeling. I don't want to be numbed through this, because then I'm going to wake up in a fog a month down the road and it's still going to be here. You have to feel what you feel. And when you were talking about whether it's good to look at pictures or not, it's less about, or am I hurting myself or am I hurting others? And I think this story really tells it. There was a woman lost her husband, and her adult children went to a counselor and said, what do we do? Mom is setting a table for my dad. It's been 3 years and she still sets his place at the table at night. And the therapist said to them, how long were your parents married? Well, they were married 50 years. Okay. So is your mom, what else is your mom doing? Oh yeah, she's great with the grandkids. She does this, but that's really weird that she's setting that place. And the woman, the counselor said, is she hurting anybody by setting that place? No. And for 50 years, she set a place for your dad, and he sat across from her. So if she finds comfort in setting that place, isn't that okay? And I think that's what we have to accept. Everyone grieves differently. Everyone has different needs. We just need to allow people to do what they need to do. And part of that is to really go deep, and to be deep in that pain in the beginning. Too often, what we try to do is we try to make it better, and you can't. We need to let that person hurt, really, really hurt, and feel it, and learn. What I always say is that pain never goes away. I mean, I'm a big beach person, and I love sea glass. And I like to use that as my analogy, is when that piece of glass first goes into the ocean, the edges are really sharp. And if you pick it up, you'll get cut, and it's raw and painful. But over time, the glass is still glass, but the edges soften. And that's how it is with grief. It's still there, but it softens if you allow it, and it's not as sharp and it doesn't hurt as much, but you will learn to carry that pain with you. And I don't want to get over the pain. I don't want the pain of losing my son to stop, because that pain to me is the love that I have for my son. I want the hurt to be there, but you learn to carry it. You have to learn to carry it.
I have one, because you're such an expert in this area. What about kids? Kids grieving. I've always been intrigued. My dad died when I was 9. We didn't go to the funeral. I think kids are a whole different game. I think the 14-year-old kid that lost his mom, lost his dad, I think they go through a different grieving process. What do you know about that?
Kids do grieve differently, no doubt. In fact, we like to kind of say it's more like a roller coaster, because they'll be, running around with their friends, and then they are just in the abyss again, and they're in deep pain. And then you'll be like, but wait, you were just fine. And that's normal. That's okay. Again, we have to all respect that each of us are going to grieve different. The other thing is, I don't think we give kids enough credit, right? We need to be open and honest with kids. We need to let them be part of the process. If that kid had a loss too, again, we're trying to protect them. We try to shield them. And I think we do more damage. We have to let you feel, let me explain what a funeral is. Let me explain what a wake is. Is this something that you want to go to, that you want to try? Provide them with a safe opportunity that if they want to try and then they're not comfortable, that there's somebody that's a safe person for them that then can remove them from the situation. But I don't think just make the decisions for the kids. I think we need to bring the kids into the grieving process. We need to let them feel what they feel. And in the area of suicide, we need to find ways to be open and honest. If somebody died of a heart attack, we would say they died of a heart attack. If someone dies by suicide, we can tell kids that their loved one died by suicide. We can tell them that their brain was sick. Just like if their heart was sick and stopped working, sometimes your brain gets sick. Yeah. And there are ways, but it's how we present it as adults. And we need to be safe people for our kids, but we can't make it better for them. They have the inner strength to move themselves through it as well.
Yeah. So you said earlier that when there's different raises in the suicide rate, like you said, had happened in January and February, that you look into and try to find the cause. So how do you do that?
So not really look for the cause, because what we know, suicide is a very complex health issue, right? There's really simple cause. As human beings, we want to find that cause. So we want to see, oh, there was a breakup, there was a job loss, that's why they killed themselves. But if you really do what's called a psychological autopsy, very often you can find things and see that there were other underlying things going on in the person's life. We always say, the research shows that there's usually historical, environmental, and health factors that contribute, that all come together at a given point in time. So we do try to look at what the factors were in a person's life. Sometimes with our youth, we do have that impulsivity factor, and that definitely can play a role, but usually there are things going on in somebody's life that can be real or perceived. That's the other thing. We can say, but that person had the perfect life, but for whatever reason, their brain was not allowing them to make the connections and see that in such a way, and they were feeling this deep pain. So it's unfortunately, suicide is just not that simple, and needs to be more research done to see better ways that we can prevent it. But one of the best ways we know to prevent suicide is to talk about it, to raise awareness, to not be afraid of having conversations head on. You seem to be in a really deep and dark place. Sometimes when people are feeling like that, they think of killing themselves. Have you ever thought of killing yourself? And give that person permission to say, you know what? Yeah, I am feeling that way, without saying, oh my God, you can't do that. Don't do that. And try to talk them out of it. Instead, give them a safe place to let those feelings come out, to talk about what they're feeling, and then connect them to the resources that they need. And this is really important with kids. We can't, talk it away. We have to know that there's deep feelings and things going on in this person, and we need to give them safe places to talk about it, and then hook them up with the resources, the professionals, to be properly evaluated and connected to therapy or whatever else they may need.
Great. I just have one last quickie. So during this COVID-19 surreal pandemic we've gone through, where over 100,000 people are grieving people they love, who they've lost, and another group of people is battling this virus. And then there's a whole load of people that are just put in these uncomfortable situations. And it must be hard for you to hear people complaining, blaming, getting upset about their lives, having gone through what you've gone through. But you lead with a place of love. I don't think there is a part of you that gets angry or gets upset with people. In a loving way, how do you handle your friends who are saying, this is terrible, I can't believe it, I got to go on another week like this? I mean, how do you show empathy and compassion for them? And what do you say to them?
I'm just a big believer in trying to shift the perspective. That must be really hard. I have, two of my nieces are graduating seniors and they're not going to have their graduations. And I know that's really hard, but I'm proud. I'm really proud of them because it's all about having conversations. We've talked about it and they understand that, yep, it's not how they pictured this was going to go, but it's not the worst thing. And there are other good things happening. I know my niece that lives in Hasbrook Heights in Bergen County. They're doing a lot of fun things for the seniors. They have people adopting the seniors and leaving little treats at the house every day during the month of May, which wouldn't have happened at another time. And they're realizing that there are other things. I think it's never to judge. I think there's way too much judgment that goes on all the time. We can never walk in another person's shoes, but to understand that the experience is hard, but try to help them to shift their perspective to what's good. So there's a lot hard about the pandemic, but there are also some blessings. To not dismiss what, I think perspective is important because what somebody is very hard to somebody, like for me, it may be hard for me to say, well, that's not really that hard. But I also have to open my heart and understand that for that person, they're kind of lucky that that's the hardest thing to them, but this is hard for them. So I always share my feelings on gratitude that I firmly believe that if we can start each day with finding something that we're grateful for. And I will tell you that I did practice this from the minute that I lost TJ. I woke up on December 2nd that morning, the day after he died, and I thought, thank you, God, for these two precious boys that I still have here on this earth. And thank you for letting me be TJ's mom. Thank you for this wonderful man that's laying here beside me, grieving this child. We can always find something to be grateful for, even the most horrific circumstance. And that does change your mindset and will help you to move forward through a given day. So I'm grateful for you and the friendship that we've had. I really am. It was life-changing for me to come across you on the beach in that yoga class. Yoga for me has really changed my life. It's given me a great opportunity for self-care, which is something that we all need to practice and understand there's a difference between being selfish and practicing self-care. And yoga is something that's become very important to me and has been a lifestyle choice. So I think we just need to be kinder to each other.
Wow. So incredible, right, Jocelyn?
Yes. Thank you so much, Wendy, for sharing your story and your words. And you are preaching and living what it's all about. So thank you so much for talking to us today.
Yeah. One day I want to grow up.
Reach out. You can find me at rememberingtj.org. And you can get in touch if I can help with anything. If you have a struggling teen, if you need any help or support, feel free to reach out.
And I know you do some counseling all the time, right?
I do support for survivors of loss and for parents of struggling teens.
Yeah.
But I am not a clinician, so it's peer support.
Yeah. You went to a different school to get this. Well, needless to say, one day I want to grow up and be like you. You're incredible. You're the whole deal, right? You're loving, you're kind, you're strong, you're freaking resilient, you're smart as you can be, and you lead, as Jocelyn said, you lead by example. And again, I just know a lot of friends that I think would love to get in touch with you. So Wendy, thank you. I love you. Thank you for everything you do, and have a great, great day. And thanks. All right, we'll shut this baby down.
Bye.
Excellent.